Hi everyone, David MacDonald here in Vitality Fitness Calgary. Today what we're going to go over is how much sleep do I really need? So sleep is obviously very important for many reasons. We're going to go over those reasons a little bit later, okay? But first we're going to answer this question that we have here on the board. So the short answer to this question is about 7 to 9 hours a night. And that's how much sleep most of us are going to need. I would be safe to say that 80 to 85% of us fall within that range. You are always going to have those outliers, those small percentages of people that can get away with 5 or 6 hours a night. And then you're also going to have those people that are going to need a little bit more than that 9-hour mark. They might need 10 and a half hours a night. But most of us are going to need at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And that's not 7 to 9 hours broken up where you're in bed and you're there for 3 hours and you get up for an hour and then you go back to bed for another 4. This is consecutive sleep. So 7 to 9 consecutive hours. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can actually go to bed 3 consecutive nights and wake up without using an alarm clock or without having your kids jump on you or getting up to use the washroom. Actually track what time you naturally wake up, okay, for 3 consecutive nights and then average that out, and that's another great indicator that will provide you with this answer on how much sleep that you actually need. So, like I said, most of us are going to fall between 7 to 9 hours a night. Personally, for myself, where I feel the best is about 8 hours. When I get that 8 hours, I feel awesome. If I get any more than 8, okay, I don't really feel that good because I've overslept, and if I get anything less than 8, I feel very exhausted. I haven't had enough rest. I start to burn out after a while. So that's the magic number for me. But most of us are going to fall within this 7 to 9 range. Some of us will fall outside of it. Now, the next question you might be asking or might be wondering is, why is sleep so important? So there's many reasons as to why sleep is important. We're going to talk about 2 of those today. The first one is recovery, and the second reason is managing hormones. So with recovery, sleep allows us to fully recover from exercise, recover from the stresses of day-to-day life, whether that's our career and our job, taking care of kids, taking care of any kind of person who's dependent on us. There's a lot of stresses in our life that add up that our body and also our mind need recovery from. It's actually where our brain gets to shut off for 7 to 9 hours, and your brain gets a rest as well. So for recovery alone, 7 to 9 hours is absolutely necessary for most of us. Okay, to translate it to exercise and to relate it to exercise, when we exercise, we're actually not creating adaptation. So what I mean by that is a lot of people think that when they're in the gym working out, that's when they're getting stronger, that's when they're getting fitter, that's when they're creating all of those positive changes that we all want. It's actually when you're outside of the gym, when you're recovering, when you're resting, when you're sleeping, is where you're getting stronger, where you're getting fitter, where you're making all of those positive changes. So if you don't give your body enough time to recover from your workouts that you're doing, then your progress is going to be slow, and you might actually start to regress. You actually might start to lose fitness, lose strength, okay, depending on how often and also how intense you're working out as well. So the more often you work out and the higher the intensity, the more imperative recovery is. Okay, so that's number 1. The second reason is managing hormones. So we have 3 hormones that are regulated by sleep. Cortisol, we have ghrelin, and we have leptin. And these hormones are very important to manage, especially if you're wanting to lose weight. So cortisol is the stress hormone. So anytime our body is overstressed and hasn't had enough recovery, our cortisol levels are going to be higher. So if you're getting enough sleep, that's going to allow you to manage that cortisol a bit better, okay, compared to if you're not getting a lot of sleep, and your cortisol levels are going to be high. The other thing when we have high cortisol levels is that we crave more carbohydrates and we crave more sugar. So if our cortisol levels are high, we're not getting enough sleep, we're not recovering enough from stress, you're going to notice that you're going to want to crave more sweets, more sugar, okay, more carbohydrates. One of the things you might notice is that when you're feeling stressed, maybe it's from work or you haven't gotten enough sleep or you're just feeling overwhelmed from life, one of the things that you're going to crave is sugar, carbohydrates, sweets. From a personal standpoint, for me, I know that when I don't get enough sleep, I notice right away within a couple days, my cravings for carbohydrates and sugar increase dramatically. And it works like clockwork. I've actually have tested this with myself where, I've gone through periods of getting maybe 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night, and then I've gone through other periods where it's been 7 to 9, and there's a big difference in terms of the foods that I crave when I'm getting less sleep compared to when I'm getting more sleep. Okay. The other two hormones are leptin and ghrelin. So these hormones regulate hunger and satiation. So one of the big benefits of sleep is that you're going to be able to regulate these hormones so they're not going to get out of whack. So the benefit of leptin, okay, when we increase our level of leptin, okay, is we're going to feel fuller. Okay, we're going to have less hunger cues. Okay, when we have high levels of ghrelin, okay, we're not going to feel as satiated. Okay, so we want to have higher leptin and lower ghrelin. Okay, and that's going to help to regulate hunger. That's going to help to minimize hunger cues. So when we don't get enough sleep, that's when we have imbalances with those hormones. Leptin levels tend to be lower with less sleep. Ghrelin levels tend to be higher, okay, which creates more hunger and less satiation after meals. So that's why sleep is very important for those two hormones. It helps to regulate those hormones where we're not having huge drops in leptin and huge spikes in ghrelin. Okay. The other thing that can happen if we lack sleep is we can create insensitivities to these hormones. So we might have healthy leptin levels and we might have healthy ghrelin levels, but those healthy levels aren't enough to regulate our hunger cues, okay, because our body's developed an insensitivity to the amount of this hormone because we lack sleep. Okay, so sleep is not just important for adequate recovery, it's also important for managing those hormones, okay, especially the leptin and the ghrelin, because if our leptin and ghrelin levels aren't regulated, we're going to eat more food. Okay, our satiation levels and our satiation in general is going to be thrown off, and our brain is not going to be able to register when we're actually full. We might have ate enough food and ate enough calories, but that connection with the brain isn't there because those hormones are so off base. So that's another reason why you want to get enough sleep, is regulating those three hormones. If you'd like to come check us out at Vitality Fitness Calgary, okay, you can go on our website at vitalityfitnesscalgary.com. On the right-hand side, click the link to the 1-month trial for $20. It's a great way to come in, try out some classes, try us out for a month and see if we're a good fit for you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.